And I just wanted to make a quick note. I wanted to make these materials shareable for you all. So I've put them in my box for USU, and then I've got a tiny URL so that it's easier that you can just type that URL in. Every slide throughout the presentation is going to have that URL. So it's okay if if you feel like you don't want to download them now, but later on as I'm talking, you decide you do want to download them, it won't ever be too late to do that. And the reason I'm sharing it in part is because I'm sharing a lot of links in this presentation that I think you'll find useful. So, all right. Continuing on. So I just wanted to make a quick note that this workshop is what we call psychoeducational in purpose. It's sharing some information, but it's not intended to share or it's not intended to take the place of mental health advice. And so if you are in need of mental health care, I definitely recommend that you reach out to a therapist. Okay. So a couple of things, this workshop is all about self-care, and pretty much anytime that I have presented about self-care, sorry about the noise, my neighbor's dog seems to be barking, if you all are hearing that. Anytime I've presented about self-care, one of the things that I really like to talk about is how here in the US, at least, we often have a culture in which it feels like self-care is optional and kind of something that we can make our last priority. And that's just not true. It's not true. Self-care is actually something that's very important. It should be top of your list, and it's not selfish. And here's the reason why. So first of all, we need self-care for ourselves in order for ourselves to be strong and healthy, but we also need it for our loved ones, or a lot of times for the people we serve in our professional roles, so that they know that they can lean on us appropriately. When we don't take good care of ourselves, people may doubt whether or not they really can lean on us. We also need it for the work that we do to be able to keep doing that. And now this includes work in terms of school, work responsibilities, and it also includes work like activism work, for example. One of the things that I found, so the past couple of years, I've been working at Northern Arizona University before coming back to USU. And I was working with the Native American Cultural Center there, and a lot of the Native American students I talked to were like, but isn't that selfish? Like, my people need me. And I do hear that from people, especially from collectivist cultures or really close-knit families a lot. And this is what I always say to them about that is, no, it's not selfish, because when you are stronger, you're more able to do the work you're doing. You're more able to support other people. And so you're not just getting stronger for you, you're getting stronger for your family and for your community. And we need healthy people. Every family needs healthy people. Every culture, every community needs healthy people in order to be strong. Any comments or thoughts people might want to add to this? You can just shout it out. You don't have to wait for me to like call on you if you do have any. You're also welcome to type them in the chat if you don't want to say them out loud, and I'll read them without saying like who said it. Okay, moving on. So, kind of in line with what I was just saying, when we do self-care, we're ensuring that we are sharing with the world the best of ourselves instead of just what's left over after everything else has taken from us, whether it's work or other responsibilities. Even though self-care is very important for all of us, it's really, really hard to do. So I think it's good to talk about some of the reasons why, and this is definitely not an exhaustive list. There are definitely other reasons why self-care can be hard to do. But sometimes it's hard to do because we care a lot about other people. We care a lot about other causes. Maybe we feel pressure from within, pressure from other people, pressure from organizations, peer pressure, seeing other people overperform. Sorry, my little puppy's wanting to get snuggles here. Sometimes we struggle to do self-care because we're chasing away insecurity. This is something I see a lot with especially people who have always been like really good students or like employee of the month type of person, you know, sometimes that person who's kind of working themselves into the ground and struggling with self-care is struggling that way because, you know, doing really well and overperforming and working so hard is a way that they're running away from some of their own insecurities or trauma or things, you know, that are painful for them. For a lot of us, myself included, we just were never taught how to do self-care. I didn't really learn about the concept of self-care until I became a therapist myself. And sometimes we were even taught the opposite. You know, I think sometimes we belong to cultures, families, communities where we're taught, you know, you're the last in line, everything else comes first. And when that's the case, then self-care can be especially really hard to do. Sometimes it's because we don't know how important self-care is. Or sometimes it's because others around us, especially people that have power over our lives, they don't know how important it is. And so they kind of discourage us from doing good self-care. So no matter what that is, your reasons are that make it hard for you to do self-care, it can be helpful if you come up with these things called affirmations. And affirmations are really just statements that we say to each other and or write down or say to ourselves that can help us to keep in mind that it is okay to do good self-care. And so I just kind of came up with some here, and I found some online too. And I'll read a couple of those out loud. I'll just kind of randomly pick a few. For example, whenever I can, it's okay to choose the battles worth fighting. So sometimes we don't get to choose, but sometimes we can choose, you know what? I'm just not going to fight this time on this. I'm just going to let this one go because for my own self-care, I'm not in the position to do this. I do not have to be everything to everyone. You definitely don't have to. I choose to schedule and to prioritize what matters to me. So I'd be curious to hear what things on this slide or your own you might come up with that people can connect with. So if I could get 1 or 2 volunteers to either just say it out loud or just type it in the chat, what stands out to you? And it can be something on the slide or it can be one you've thought of on your own. I do not have to be everything to everyone was typed in the chat. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to share is this self-care assessment. And this is one of my very most favorite tools in the whole world that I love to share whenever I'm doing presentations on self-care. It's from a website called Therapist Aid. And this website, Therapist Aid, by the way, has worksheets for just about everything emotional and mental health related under the sun. And it has worksheets that are appropriate for adults, worksheets for adolescents, worksheets for children, all of that. I don't have any kind of connection with them. I don't know who runs it. I don't get any money from them or anything like that. I'm really just putting in a plug because I use it all the time and I think it's wonderful. So to find this, you can just go to therapistaid.com, like type that in, or you can download these slides and just click. And this is a clickable link that can take you to that website. I've gone ahead and just like put images of the website here to save us time for this presentation. This is what it'll look like when you go to therapistaid.com, and you can just type in self-care and it will actually take you to a list of options to self-care assessment. And once you click on that, you'll want to click on download free worksheet right here where this red arrow is pointing. And that will take you to a PDF version of this really, really excellent and awesome self-care assessment. And so just to give you kind of a sneak peek of what it looks like, the thing that I really love about it, well, one of the things I love about it is it provides this opportunity for you to do a rating scale saying 1 through 3, do I do this really well or really often, or do I do it poorly and or, rarely or not at all? And then to put a little star by the things that you want to improve on or do more frequently. So it's a really great way to just kind of check in with yourself and see what are the areas in my life where I'm taking better care of myself and where am I not taking such good care of myself. And then here's an example of one of the domains it includes, so you can see kind of what those questions look like. And this one is professional self-care, which is great for school, great for work. And some of these are things that I would have never thought of as self-care before seeing this assessment, but it's so great, you know? And so things like self-care is learning new things related to my profession. It's taking my breaks during work instead of just continually working through, you know, saying no to excessive responsibilities, advocating for fair pay and benefits and other needs. So many great ideas of how you can take care of yourself in a professional setting. These are the other areas that this self-care assessment tool includes: physical care, psychological or emotional, social, spiritual, and professional. And I'm sure there are folks, you know, joining this workshop who can think of other areas that you could expand on and build your own, but this one could give you kind of a springboard and a starting place to look at least these areas of your self-care and kind of get the ball rolling. So I just love this self-assessment. It's so great at stepping up your self-care. And so I really recommend that you get on and download that and fill it out. It'll take you like no time at all, like 5 minutes or less. The next thing I want to share is just some self-care coping skills in addition to that kind of self-care assessment, things that can help. And I'm really zooming in and focusing on psychological and emotional help with these because that's what I do. So one of these tools is sleep hygiene. So there are a number of things that you can do besides medications. Not to diss medications. Medications can be great, but there are a number of behavioral things you can do that can definitely help improve your sleep. So I wanted to share this resource on sleep hygiene. So if you'd like to see my list of sleep hygiene tools, and this is just basically a handout that lists them all in a lot of detail. You can download these slides, and then this is another clickable word here that says sleep hygiene, and it will take you to another file in my USU box that has the handout that I give to my therapy clients for sleep hygiene. A really excellent tool. If you would rather than just reading it, see a more involved kind of discussion of that, I do have a recorded workshop on YouTube that you can watch to learn about sleep hygiene, and I'll talk a little bit more about that toward the end of the presentation. Another thing I wanted to share that's so important for emotional and psychological self-care is labeling your feelings. And it might sound simple, but so often we're not really even aware of what we feel to even know how to go about addressing it. So one of the biggest tools that I love to use in therapy with folks is just practicing when they're coming in with something that they're struggling with, just practicing identifying as specifically as possible what is the emotion that you're having. And this tool, the feelings wheel, is my favorite tool for that, because as you can see, if you look at it, it gets really, really specific. Like it doesn't just say angry, it says violated and indignant. You know, it doesn't just say happy, it says curious and courageous and creative. You know, so it's just such a really good tool. And there's something very powerful and clarifying for just putting a label on the emotion that you're feeling, and helps us kind of get a sense of direction, even a sense of validation, helps us understand why we're bothered by what we're bothered by. So you can download the slides and get this image here. You can also get it from the original site that I got it from, which is feelingswheel.com. And that is a clickable link right here as well. I'll pause right here. Comments or questions that people might have, and you can say them out loud or type them in the chat. I'll keep an eye out. Okay. The next thing is this thing called cognitive distortions. And so sometimes we're just making some thinking errors that can make us feel more stressed out, more sad, more anxious. And so there's definitely something that we can do to kind of get a handle on those thinking errors. Okay. And we call those thinking errors cognitive distortions. And so just to give you kind of a starting point of some of those thinking errors, at Therapist Aid, I've linked a worksheet called Common Cognitive Distortions and another one called Decatastrophizing. And decatastrophizing relates to a specific type of thinking error that we can do called catastrophizing, where we think the worst thing is probably going to happen. I saw a question in the chat that says, can we rewatch this workshop later? You definitely can rewatch this workshop later. We are going to be posting it online. And what you can do is email me. It's Angela, ANGELA.eno, ENNO at usu.edu. And I can send along information to you about when we get it posted. And also I'll be sharing with you a few different workshops that are already online or going to be online on YouTube that I've provided as well. So anyway, checking your thinking and looking for cognitive distortions is another thing you can do that will help you kind of just reframe and by reframe, I mean, get into a more positive kind of state of mind or at least a more neutral one, and kind of check some of the errors in your thinking that might be making you feel a little more negatively about yourself or the world or a situation. So check out those tools, the common cognitive distortions. I guarantee everybody watching this workshop right now does some of these. I've never, ever shared this and not had people identify with it, because we all do them. All right. And this next one I want to share is a really great coping skill for when you're having panic or in a state of crisis. And this is one of my favorites. So we have this thing in our body that's called the dive response. And it's something that we can use as kind of a hack to help us get to a calmer state quickly. So in order to explain it, let me back up a bit. Okay. So first off, we have two opposing systems in our nervous system. One is called the sympathetic and one is called the parasympathetic. And you've probably heard of these before. The sympathetic is the fight or flight or freeze system. And it's what happens when we're exposed to a stressful situation. Our heart rate goes up, we might get sweaty, we sometimes get stomach aches, we feel really anxious, blood rushes away from our belly and into our hands and our feet, getting ready to run and fight. And it's just kind of an unpleasant place to be, honestly. We can feel so shaky and jittery. This is what's happening when you have a panic attack. It's what's happening when your anxiety level is too high. Sometimes it even happens when you've had too much caffeine. And then we have the competing system, because our bodies are always looking for kind of a state of homeostasis, to try and keep us on an even keel. And so we have this competing system called the parasympathetic that takes over to calm us down. Okay, so the dive response is a hack that can help you activate that parasympathetic or that competing system. And that system is called the rest and digest system. So when that system is activated, more of our blood gets diverted back into our belly. Our body begins to focus again on digestion, which helps get rid of those stomach aches that can happen when you're anxious. We think a little bit more clearly. We're not trying to flee a situation or fight with anybody. And sometimes if it's very activated, we can even get kind of sleepy. So that's why sometimes you're really tired after having an emotional day or an emotional therapy session or a panic attack or something like that. So anyway, this dive response is a great way to get that parasympathetic activation. So the way that it works is this. So if you are about to drown, basically the worst possible thing that you could do is to flail about wildly and to gasp for air, because you're going to drown quicker that way. And so when the body recognizes, hey, I'm about to drown, there's this natural dive response that clicks in that says, okay, we've got to slow down, and it will slow our heart rate down, and it will divert blood away from our non-essential organs like our hands and our feet to our brain and our heart. And it'll sometimes, it kind of just naturally will kind of mimic that parasympathetic response, basically, okay? And because of the way that it affects our biology. And so what you can do to activate this. So the easiest way and quickest way, but it's kind of a way that you can't do everywhere you go and could be awkward, is to completely dunk your head under cold water. Like literally get a bowl or get in the tub and just under cold water. Of course, we can't always do that, or sometimes we don't want to do that. And you want to stay under that water for as long as you can. So if you're not in a place where you can do that or want to do that, something you can do instead is splash cold water on your face, or put a cold pack or a Ziploc bag full of ice or water over your eyes and your upper cheeks, and then just hold your breath. So you're trying to kind of simulate that same response. So if you can do this for about 15 to 30 seconds, just as long as you can handle it, then you'll activate that dive response. This works best when you're able to just sit quietly after submersing your head or covering it up and holding your breath. A couple of things to note that are important if you're going to try this, though. So if it's super, super icy cold, it can decrease your heart rate really, really rapidly. And so you don't have to go like crazy cold, just a little cold, and if you have any kind of like heart condition or medical condition, or you have like a low heart rate already existing, which can happen on certain medications. It can happen if you have certain medical conditions. It can happen if you take a beta blocker. Then it's important to consult with your medical provider before you try this tip. Also, some people have an allergic response to cold that they can break out in hives. And so it would be probably not a great idea to do this, or at least not a great idea to do it without consulting with a medical provider first, if you're in any of those situations. So I'll pause here for more questions, comments that people might have about anything so far. You can say it out loud or type it in the chat. Looks like we have somebody in the chat. Love this tip. Yeah, I love this tip too. And it's one of the weirdest tips I ever teach people, but man, does it work. I hear all the time how awesome it is, even though it sounds so weird. All right. I'll check the chat again in a minute in case somebody's still kind of thinking of or formulating their question, but I'll move on. I wanted to put in a quick plug. So I've mentioned a couple times now some other workshops that you can view. So these are workshops that I am providing fall semester through the College of Education and Human Services and CAPS jointly. I go live every Friday at 3:30 on YouTube, and it's on the College of Education and Human Services YouTube channel. You can download these slides and find that channel just by clicking here, or you can just go to YouTube and search College of Education and Human Services. So you can join me live on Fridays at 3:30 as I'm presenting, but you can also watch any of those workshops after the fact at this link that's right here. So if you download these slides, you can click there, or you can just search the College of Education and Human Services YouTube channel and then find it. It's Healthy Minds workshops, and it has a playlist right there that you can get into. Okay. I did have a question. It says, I know that I've been told that leaning into the anxiety helps the anxiety to subside because the parasympathetic nervous system will kick in. That's been working pretty okay for me lately. Would this tip get in the way of that? No, I would say it wouldn't get in the way of that. When it comes to anxiety, there's kind of two competing approaches to treating anxiety that we can use as psychologists. One approach is is challenging anxious thoughts, using kind of these other coping strategies, like, for example, the dive response one. And another approach is more acceptance-based. I view them like this. So I see them as a screwdriver and a hammer. And so sometimes one works, sometimes the other works better. Things like the dive response are a really great short-term tool for you to use, especially when you're having like a panic attack, like right now, to get you through the day, get you through the moment. It's not going to do a lot to decrease anxiety for you in any kind of a long-term way. Sometimes the things like challenging anxious thinking can do something long-term. Sorry, my dog's playing with a squeak toy in the background. Those can help somewhat long-term, but acceptance-based strategies can also help a ton long-term. And it is accurate that if you can just accept the presence of anxiety without having to argue with it, without having to do anything to make it go away, that could make a big difference for anxiety. And some of the tools that I will recommend to people are similar to that, specific acceptance-based tools. I don't cover any of those in this presentation, but I did cover some in the Tools for Better Sleep workshop that I did on October 8th. So if you would like to learn a couple more acceptance-based tools, you can check out Tools for Better Sleep at this this link here, the view past live streams here. Anyway, throughout the semester, there's a whole bunch of topics here that you can check out. You can check them out live, or you can watch them later. Okay. Other questions that people might have about anything so far? Self-care related, anxiety related, coping skill related, whatever. Okay. I wanted to share a couple of COVID-specific resources with you all because COVID is increasing anxiety and depression and making self-care harder for people all over the world. So if you are experiencing a lot more distress lately than you normally do, you're definitely not alone. So we've seen more people getting anxiety and depression that have never had it before. And we're seeing also increase in severity with people who have had it before. So I wanted to share a couple of resources here. The SHINE project is all focused on COVID and mental health. And if you download the slides, there's a link to go to their website, and this is what their website looks like. I'm noticing a question in the chat that says, I've always wondered how come people throw or put water on their face, especially in movies, after court, when they're in a tough or sticky situation. Is that the dive response? Yes, that is the dive response, that they're, and they may not have been aware of it, but maybe they've stumbled across it or somebody told them how it works, but that is probably the dive response that's helping. You know, and there are kind of two pieces to that. So oftentimes when that sympathetic nervous system reaction is happening, our faces tend to get really hot when we're anxious. Not everybody's does, but many people's do. And so cooling down that temperature of your face is one step. The other half, that's dive response, that makes it even more effective and takes it next level, is the holding the breath. So the two components together is even more effective than just splashing the water. Another resource I wanted to share for COVID is, this is just a podcast episode from the American Psychological Association speaking about coronavirus anxiety. And so you can download that on any podcast app that you might use, or you can also go directly to the webpage, and there is the webpage right there. That's a clickable link if you download these slides, and you can check out that. Now, this last thing that I have is actually a progressive muscle relaxation exercise. And this is one of the best tools for anxiety. It's a great tool for falling asleep. It's a great tool for self-care. And so I'll put a plug in this in almost every mental health related presentation that I do for doing progressive muscle relaxation, because it is amazing. And so I'm going to give you all the opportunity to go through one with me today. I'm just going to play a YouTube video that I often play for my clients in therapy. But before I do that, why don't we check in with Angie in HR and see if she wanted to do the raffle first.
The raffle? Yeah, sure.
Everybody's going to get kind of tired and checked out, and some people may not want to do the progressive muscle relaxation. So
okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, so I've got a number for everybody. If Angela would choose a number between 1 and 50, we'll see who gets the winning raffle prize.
okay, I'm gonna choose 15.
15, and that looks like it's Stephen Bradford. Congratulations. Woo, Stephen. Good job.
Hey.
I'll send you an email and we can figure out how to get you that gift card to you. So great job. And can I make one last plug, Angela, too?
Yeah, go for it.
So tonight at 6:30, we have Jalen Moore, who's a former Aggie basketball player, who's going to be talking about his mental health and some struggles he's dealt with. And then Noelle Cockett's going to talk after him. So it's available virtual. So hopefully you guys will either attend in person or online. My last little plug. Thank you. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to get that progressive muscle relaxation exercise up for us. And I'll share my screen again. So for this, if you're not in a place where you can relax and do this right now, you don't have a place that you can like either sit comfortably or lay down, or maybe you're around other people and you don't feel comfortable doing it, although this can definitely be done around other people, but we want to make sure people are feeling safe. So if you're not feeling safe, or you're not feeling like this is a good time and situation for you to do it, that's totally okay. You can download the slides and click on the word progressive muscle relaxation in my slides, and it will take you to this exact video. You can also search YouTube for a progressive muscle relaxation video of your own, but I'll share this one for those who want to participate, and after that will be the end of the seminar. So if you don't want to be a part of that, and you don't have any questions that you want to hang after and ask me, you can hop off now. But if you do want to be a part of it, it's going to be a really great experience, hopefully, and kind of give you some exposure to progressive muscle relaxation. So with that said, let's hop on and do some progressive muscle relaxation. And I'm going to turn off my video because I'm going to do it along with you all. All right, so here we go. Okay, it sounds like people are having a hard time hearing it. So what I'll do is send it to everybody in the chat. And then everybody who wants to be a part of it and experience it right now can do it along with me. And then we'll all just come back to the room after we've had the chance to go through it. So the link is in the chat. It's about 15 minutes long. You should be able, whoops, I just sent it to Blanding only. Let me send it to everybody in the meeting. You should be able to click right directly from here and pull it up. Send me a message in the chat if you have any trouble. All right, it looks like people are starting to finish up. So I'll go ahead and open up for anybody who wants to comment or ask questions. And if not, then you're free to go. That was the end of the workshop. Just wanted to end it on the note of some self-care for y'all, besides just telling you about self-care, giving you the opportunity to do some to make your day a little bit better, help you get relaxed and unwinding. Thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you to everybody for the comments and feedback. And yes, I had a comment here saying, welcome back to USU. Yes, I was a multicultural coordinator in access and diversity back when I was a graduate student at USU too, and I was working full-time in access and diversity, and now I'm back and working at CAPS, and it is, yeah, it's very nice to be back. Love USU. So. Yeah, other comments or questions people might have, whether it's with regard to this exercise, other mental health topics, anything I've covered. I'm just hanging around to kind of answer any of those. And if not, then, you know, enjoy the rest of your day, and hope you all do some good self-care over this next week.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, I'm studying psychology right now, and one of the things that we just talked about is how, for people with depression, sometimes cutting down on things that they do can be harmful to them. So I was just wondering if you could explain to me like the balance between like exercising self-care and not like cutting back so much on stuff that it's not helpful.
Yes, so that's a really good question. So sometimes with depression, especially when it's severe, it can become what we call vegetative depression. And so a person may be like struggling to do basic self-care, hygiene stuff, struggling to get, sorry, my puppy's just really insistent on attention right now, struggling to, you know, go to class, go to work, all that kind of stuff. And they will often, and even when they're not at that severe level, sometimes at the moderate level, they don't want to do like social activities and things like that. And so if that's going on, it definitely is, you know, it can be harmful to you to go with that urge to stay in bed, to not socialize. And so it is important to get out there. So self-care sometimes does involve like cutting back and doing less and giving yourself, you know, more downtime. But sometimes self-care is getting exercise. Sometimes it's getting good sleep. Sometimes self-care is making sure you're maintaining your social relationships. And so I would say, I would take a functional perspective, and what that means is I would look at what effect does it have. So if the thing that you're doing for self-care seems to be making things worse, then it probably isn't self-care, and it might even be self-destruction. If it seems to be making things better for you, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, professionally, then it probably is self-care. Right now, there are a couple of exceptions to that, and one of the things that really comes to mind for me when I think about like social justice work, for example. Self-care and community care sometimes involves pushing back against oppressive systems, and if that's the case, it is self-care, but it also may sometimes result in some backlash, right, from the people in power. So that doesn't mean it's not self-care and not good community care. It just means you're fighting power structures. And also, you know, you may have, like, for example, when you first begin like a workout routine, you may feel tired and worn out. That doesn't mean it's not self-care. It's the kind of long-term effect that it has on your mood, your health, that kind of stuff. And so when it comes to working with clients, I try to walk that line between, you know, encouraging them to get out there, don't isolate, get in touch with your peer group, all that kind of stuff, but also you know, try to take it easy too and have downtime. We all need some downtime. So there's a question in the chat about the tiny URL. I will just paste the full URL here in the chat, and then you can just click right there to download them. I was trying to paste the tiny URL in the chat, but when I do it, it takes it to the full URL. So you can click there. Other questions folks have or comments? And did that feel like it answered your question?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, if any of y'all think of questions later on that you want to ask about, feel free to send me an email. That's angela.enno@usu.edu. I know my display name says Gray, but I don't go by Gray. I just go by Angela Eno, and that is my USU email address. Otherwise, y'all have a good rest of your day. Do some good self-care this week, and hopefully we'll see you at another workshop sometime. The recording will be available. I got a question, and you can email me for information about that. You also, the things that I covered in the very beginning, I did cover in another workshop that I did for the College of Education on self-care. It's an abbreviated version. It's not as long as this workshop, but the beginning of it is included. So I will post that link. I will post that link in the chat. That was me that you just heard. So I did, yeah, like I say, an abbreviated version of this. It's only about a 30-minute one, but there's that one. Okay, so if you missed the beginning, you can catch that. But you can also email me, because there will be a recording of this that will be posted, and I can send along those details. Okay, other questions? All right, well, have a good day, y'all. Feel free to reach out if you think of questions. Bye.